Hi, and welcome to my Genius Hour project. This is going to be a summary and comparison of the Arthurian Legend, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, and its 2021 movie adaptation. Just a warning before I get started, there are images in here of people without their heads, as well as a little bit of blood. There is a bit to get through, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. First off, the original myth. It starts at Camelot on Christmas Eve. There's a feast being held at the Round Table filled with knights, gifts, and all that stuff. While King Arthur is enjoying his Christmas dinner with his knights, a giant green man, riding an equally giant green horse, bursts into the hall, carrying an axe and some holly. He approaches the king and says that he's just there to play a friendly Christmas game and that its rules are simple. One person comes up and strikes him once with his axe, and in a year and a day, he will return the blow. As a bonus, whoever participates gets to keep his axe for the year. None of the knights look like they want to do it, so Arthur prepares to just get it over with when the youngest of Arthur's knights, and also his nephew, Gawain, stops him and volunteers instead. The game proceeds, the giant bends down and bares his neck, and Gawain beheads him. The giant doesn't fall or even bleed, but instead picks up his head from the ground, intentionally making a show of it in front of the queen, and reminds Gawain of the deal that he now has to fulfill in a year's time. He gets on his horse and rides out of Camelot, menacingly laughing. As the year goes on, Gawain decides to make his way to the Green Chapel to finish the game. The middle part of his adventure is alluded to in a lot of different interpretations, but none are really put into specific detail in the original legend. Gawain eventually comes across a big and fancy castle and meets the lord of it with his beautiful wife and an ugly old woman. They've both heard about his story, tell him that the Green Chapel is really close, and because he's a bit early, convinces him to stay and rest. The Lord proposes a game to Gawain. He'll go hunting every day and give Gawain whatever he catches, on the condition that Gawain gives him whatever he may get during the day. After the Lord leaves, his wife tries to seduce Gawain, but because she's married, he refuses her advances. But because he's a knight bound by chivalry though, he doesn't refuse her outright and allows her to give him one kiss on the cheek. On the first day, the Lord returns with a deer, and Gawain returns the kiss to him, but doesn't tell him that he got it from his wife. The same thing happens again the next day. Gawain gets a boar, and the Lord gets 2 more kisses. On the third day, after being denied again, the wife gives Gawain a green and gold sash that is charmed to protect him from all physical harm. When the Lord returns with a fox, Gawain returns the 3 kisses, but doesn't mention or give him the sash, thinking that he'll need it for the ending of the game with the Green Knight. Gawain then meets up with the Green Knight at the Green Chapel and gets ready to receive his blow and end the game. On the first swing, Gawain flinches and the Green Knight belittles him. Gawain doesn't flinch for the second swing, but the Green Knight doesn't hit him, claiming to test his nerves. On the third and final swing, the Green Knight delivers his blow, which was only a small cut on Gawain's neck. The Green Knight then explains everything. He was the lord of the castle, disguised by magic, and the whole thing was actually a plan from Morgan Le Fay, King Arthur's stepsister, but not Gawain's mom. She was disguised as the old lady from the castle from before, and it was all to test his knights and hopefully frighten Queen Guinevere to death. The only reason Gawain got the cut on his neck was because he hid the sash from the lord and broke the rules of their game. They both laughed it off and parted ways on good terms though, and Gawain returned to Camelot wearing the sash as a token of his failure to keep his promise. The other knights, however, absolve him of that and decide that the sash would instead be a recognition of Gawain's adventure and serve as a reminder to be honest. Now that you've heard about the source material, it's time to hear about the movie. Here are the rules of both games, just in case you've forgotten, because they'll be important in the movie too. In the beginning of the movie, Gawain, after having a nightmare, wakes up in a brothel. He returns to Camelot and is scolded by his mom, who in this version is Morgan Le Fay. He attends the Christmas feast at the Round Table as a guest and not a knight, and sits next to his uncle, King Arthur, who in this version is depicted as an old, frail, and sickly man. While the feast is happening, and Arthur and Gawain are reconnecting, Morgan is conducting some kind of ritual that summons the Green Knight, and he barges into the hall on horseback to challenge the court. The rules are the same as the original myth, and Gawain takes up the challenge. He approaches the Green Knight wielding Excalibur and decapitates the giant in one blow. Like in the original myth, the Green Knight rises, lifts his severed head, reminds Gawain of the bargain, and rides out of Camelot laughing. Over the next year, many stories are told of Gawain and his challenge, and Gawain spends the year drinking his anxieties away, dreading the confrontation and the end of the game. Once winter comes around again, King Arthur reminds a drunken Gawain that he has to uphold his end of the challenge. and he departs with the axe and a green sash that his mother made for him to protect him. Gawain, in the movie, also has a lower-class lover named Essel, but she's really not that important until later. During Gawain's journey, which we actually see, he meets a boy in a battlefield who ambushes him with his friends and steals his axe, sash, and horse. He goes to a cottage for shelter and meets a ghost lady who he helps and somehow gets his axe back. He also travels a great distance with a fox friend. After all of that, he finds the castle with the lord, the lady, and the old woman, and is invited to rest there for a couple of days. The lady of the castle resembles Essel, his girlfriend back home, and tries to seduce Gawain by doing things like giving him a book and taking a picture of him. That night, he's invited to play in the game from the original myth by the lord to exchange whatever they get in the day. The very next day, the lady presents the sash that his mother made him earlier in the movie that was stolen from him, and claims that she made it herself. Gawain gives in to her advances in exchange for the sash, commits adultery, and the lady harshly says that he is no knight. It spooks him so bad that he flees the castle, but before he can get too far away, he runs into the lord, who gives him his fox friend from earlier and kisses Gawain. Gawain doesn't give him the sash and continues to run away. On his way to the Green Chapel, he comes across a stream where a boat is waiting for him, and his fox friend gets in his way, telling Gawain in a freaky human voice to abandon the quest. Gawain doesn't listen and takes the boat anyways, abandoning his fox friend. At the Green Chapel, the Green Knight is in some kind of hibernating state, so he sits down in front of him and waits through the night. They go to finish the game, but Gawain flinches for the first 2 swings. On the 3rd swing, Gawain gets up and runs all the way back to Camelot. He gets knighted and inherits the throne from Arthur. He never removes his sash and has a baby with Essel, but leaves her and marries a noblewoman instead, taking his son with him. Time skips and a war happens and his son, now older, dies from fighting in it, and he returns to Camelot as a failed king. More time skips and the castle is under siege by an angry mob of people. His family flees while he stays at the throne, and before the mob can break the doors down, he finally takes off his sash, which beheads him. It's all revealed that the whole part where he runs away was one big dream sequence, and he wakes up back in the Green Chapel. He removes the sash and tells the giant that he's finally ready. The Green Knight lowers his axe and praises Gawain for his bravery, drags his finger across Gawain's throat, and says, "Now, off with your head," and the movie ends. The legend is supposed to be a lesson in honesty, but also a reminder that it's okay not to be absolutely perfect all the time. Gawain is a knight, but he's also human, who's afraid of many things like death. It makes sense that he would want to keep the sash to protect himself. Gawain, compared to the rest of the knights of the Round Table, is more like an average guy. He's not as chivalrous as Lancelot and not as brave as the other knights. In the movie, he's expected and pushed into being more of a hero figure instead, while also trying to keep some of the same humble elements, which, in my opinion, ends up just clashing and makes him a lame or unlikable hero. They try to have that balance throughout the movie where Gawain yo-yos between being unlikable and being heroic, but his characterization is abruptly solidified at the end after seeing his hypothetical future, and he reforms in an instant. The development doesn't really feel earned or satisfying. Gawain in the legend isn't perfect, but he tries his best to stick to the chivalrous ideals, which makes him endearing. Gawain in the movie, however, comes off as childish or selfish. I don't think they managed to achieve the right balance of average person qualities to movie hero ones, and they end up using the major mistakes he makes throughout the movie as attempts to humanize him. The way that the movie ends is also unsatisfying for those who know about the original legend and how it goes, because in the original legend, things are actually tied up and explained. The movie is visually stunning, sure, but there are parts that are unnecessary, or don't make that much sense and feel like they're just there to pad out screen time. They could have easily cut out the part with the kid stealing his stuff, the part with the ghost where he gets his axe back, the lengthy traveling sequences, and other scenes, to make room for the explanation. Without the Green Knight revealing himself as the Lord, things just don't make as much sense as they should. They wouldn't even have had to explain everything outright, but instead just revealed the Green Knight as the Lord with a subtle but noticeable visual nod or similar line between the two. Just that one missing detail would have explained so much and made the ending much more satisfying than it is now. Anyways, I digress. Thank you for tuning in to my Genius Hour project. Here are the sources that I used and other things that need to be cited. And thank you so much for watching.